didn't click with Draisaitl. 12 seconds to go. Florida trying to end it up against the wall, which would be fitting. 3 seconds to go. The Florida Panthers have won the Stanley Cup. For the first time in their 30-year history, the Florida Panthers are Stanley Cup champions. They made it about as hard on themselves as they possibly could, battling a valiant Edmonton team that had rallied from adversity all season long. And Paul Maurice, coaching lifer, 30 years in the National Hockey League, has his Stanley Cup.
What the puck is going on?
All right, welcome back in Monday evening. What the puck is going on? Some technical difficulties got to us last week, but here we are back on Monday night as usual. And you know, Steve, probably not the worst thing is we have a very nice slate tonight for a Monday evening. As to where they've been very lackluster as of lately. I am Nephew Dave, alongside me riding with this one, Uncle Steve. How are you this evening?
Hey, happy Festivus, Dave. Christmas Eve.
Yes, happy Festivus.
And Santa comes early. No one plays here tomorrow. And we get a full slate for it tonight. So,
yep. So
after our last exciting few days, here we go. I mean, we were knee deep in in hockey here for the holidays.
Yep, and a good slate, including our Capitals tonight. We'll touch in on them. All right, Steve. So let's jump into it. We'll go start off in the standings as we usually do. The Atlantic Division right now, the Florida Panthers leading this division with 46 points. You have the Toronto Maple Leafs with 44 points, and third place, Boston, with 40 points. And then it goes as this: Tampa Bay Lightning, the Ottawa Senators, and those two are tied with 38 points. So that's pretty interesting. We'll talk a little bit about that. There's Montreal, a good 7-point gap in there, so that's kind of starting to pull away a little bit. Detroit down there, and then bringing up the rear is Buffalo, and man, have they struggled. They are still 0-8-2 in their last 10, and that's very different from the top here. You got the Panthers doing well, 7-2-1. The Maple Leafs, they are 500 up here in the top of the division, and the Bruins 7-2-1. So that kind of tells you the trend here with the top and the bottom. As it kind of was not last week, but the week before. So, Steve, what do you think here in the Atlantic Division so far?
Well, I mean, Florida, we were giving them a bunch of crap, weren't we? And now they're winners of 4 in a row. So they ended up that West Coast trip pretty hot. They'll be home for the holidays here. And let's see if they can build on that momentum. The Leafs now losers of 2 in a row after losing to the Jets this afternoon, and what could have been a Stanley Cup final, or could be still a Stanley Cup final. And how about the Bruins resurgent as well? 7-2-1 in their last 10. The Lightning, they're hot themselves, 7-3. The Senators 8-2 in their last 10, and Montreal has won 3 in a row. So good hockey being played in the Atlantic anyway.
Yeah, it would seem that way as of right now. And you kind of expect that. That's a pretty tough division there. So let's watch out for Tampa and Ottawa right now, as there's going to be a battle for the wild card when it comes to that time. So, Steve, let's jump into the Metro. We have the New Jersey. They take back the lead today with 49 points. There's our Washington Capitals with 48. They were leading heading into the day. They do play tonight against Boston, so they have a chance to take it back and get to the 50-point mark. Very good. So a chance for the Caps to, again, to get 50 points at the Christmas break, and that is quite the accomplishment. Carolina down there with 43, so there's a little bit of separation between second and third. And then as follows, the Pittsburgh Penguins there with 35, so still a little separation between the top three teams in the division and everybody else. Then the Philadelphia Flyers, the New York Rangers, who, man, they just cannot seem to figure it out right now. They are in a heavy slide. I would expect that roster to be somewhat dismantled come the trade deadline and the offseason. You got the New York Islanders and then the Columbus Blue Jackets bringing up the rear. Columbus does play hard, though, so we'd like to see the Islanders down there at the bottom. They're just kind of a low scoring, kind of a little bit more of a boring style, you would say. I think Columbus at least gives you a little bit of excitement. So, Steve, what do you make of the Metro? There's, we mentioned the Rangers heavily sliding. They were expected to be good this year. The Caps doing incredible, and nobody thought of them. So we have a little bit of, I guess you could say, a little bit of madness going on here in the Metro.
Yeah, a little bit of separation here at the top now. And you mentioned it, the Rangers, man, what a free fall. They have taken now, getting shut out 5-0 today to their rival across the river. I mean, that is not a good way to go into Christmas. You got to think that's a bad taste in that whole franchise's mouth right now. You're wondering if they make a coaching change at some point. We talked about that on the show. Just incredible. And then I'm not sure how the Penguins have kind of snuck up into the fourth spot. They're kind of down low for the most part. But by virtue of the Islanders just not playing that great and the Rangers falling apart, here you go. The beneficiaries are going to be the Penguins now in that fourth spot, 6-3-1 in their last 10. And again, what can you say about the Devils and the Capitals? Just playing great. They've been fantastic all season long. And really, you got to look at it through the lens of this too, Dave. Although the Caps only trail the Devils by a point, they have 4 less games played than New Jersey. So that's a lot of makeup ground still left to go for Washington to hop the Devils and get clear of them and handily clear.
Sorry, Steve, a little bit of trouble going on here. I had to mute real quick. But all right, yeah, so definitely some nice things going on here in the Metro. Let's get into the central standings. We have the Winnipeg Jets there with 51 points. Look at them leading the NHL. Minnesota in second place with 44 points. Colorado with 42 points. So there's some separation in the Central where, we expected this to be a lot tighter than it was. Now it is with the Wild and the Avalanche in the second and third spot, but some decent separation between the first place Jets. And then as followed, the Stars with 38, Utah with 38. You have St. Louis, then Nashville. They get out of the last spot in that division, and that is now held by the Chicago Blackhawks. Probably no shocker there. But, Steve, tell me, up here in the front with teams 1 through 4, a little bit of a surprise, right?
You know what? The Wild looked like they were on top and going to go par for par with the Jets here. But I have not been impressed watching the Wild games. I've had them on a couple of tickets recently. They haven't done anything for me. Now, the Avalanche are surging. They're 7-3 in their last 10. But I think the class of this Central is the Winnipeg. I think they may actually still be the best team in hockey. They went through their slump, and now here they are, 7-2-1 in their last 10. And, I mean, they only have 10 losses on the season, as does Minnesota. But 5 more wins overall for Winnipeg. And they've only been to overtime once, Dave. How about that?
I know, right?
Or have lost in overtime once. So that is huge for them. And that just tells you right there that they're winning by margin a lot of these games.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, they're man, they are looking like an absolute unit there in the Central. So let's drop into the Pacific. We'll wrap up these standings. The Vegas Golden Knights, they're in action tonight, leading that division with 47 points. Watch out. Here comes the Edmonton Oilers with 44 points, second place in that division. And the Kings trailing by 1 point for third place in that division. Then as follows, you have Vancouver, Calgary, Seattle, Anaheim, and San Jose. I don't think we're really surprised by any of that. This division has been kind of top-heavy for some time now. But, Steve, you know, we've been talking about Edmonton. They're starting to get things right. And there they are, second place, only 3 points out. The Kings 1 point behind them. So, you know, we've got the top 3 here in the Pacific really battling it out. What do you make of that?
The Pacific is an interesting one. I mean, but here you go, Vegas. I mean, 47 points, and at the bottom you have San Jose 28. So there's a lot of separation there from these teams at the top to the bottom. Even the mid-pack with Vancouver and Calgary, still good 8 points back of first place here. Vegas has been fantastic. 13-3 at home, which is, I believe, the best in the league. You got teams like the Kings are 10-2-1 at home. Winnipeg's 12-3-1 at home. So that's pretty good. And then even our Capitals, let's see. Not nearly as good. 11-4-2 at home. Carolina has 13 home wins. They have great home ice advantage down there in Raleigh. But Vegas is as good as it gets with the home ice advantage. Winners of 3 in a row there. You got to think as teams lose interest, get banged up, maybe look to the youth movement through the AHL. These teams that have to go on the road to Vegas, which is, I mean, let's be honest, that's a fun place to party if you're a hockey team on the road trip as well, where you're not good or going to be a playoff team. That's an easy place to screw around at. And you got to look at Vegas at home, I think, from here on out, just as good as they've been. Again, last night they win by margin themselves. So they are the cream of the crop to me with that home ice in the Pacific.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Steve. So, some interesting things here in the standings, and I'm sure we'll have quite different takes as of next week. And, that is the thing with the NHL is, tonight one team's on top and tomorrow they are not. So we'll keep an eye on that and see what happens with all that. So let's go ahead and jump into our slate. We have a decent one tonight. So let's get after it. We'll start. Oh, Steve, you might the location here, with the book just doesn't want to let me do it. So I guess I got to be over weird. There. So weird stuff going on with that. I thought you would appreciate that. So let's jump into it. We'll start with our guys, the Washington Capitals, traveling to Boston, take on the Bruins. Caps did play last night, so second end of a back-to-back. It's going to be -1.5 on the puck line for the Bruins is a +180. We have the over-under here is 5.5. I think that could be achievable here tonight with these two teams. And then +120 on the money line for the Capitals, -142 for the Bruins. If you like the 60-minute lines here, those are both looking pretty good. Boston at even 100 there, and the Caps at plus 185. Let's get the goalie matchups. I went ahead and I took a team total here. I did the Caps for 2.5, and it was a minus 140, I believe. On the back-to-back, I think that's kind of the way to attack this if you want to go with the side of the Washington Capitals. Just maybe knowing that they need to get to that total instead of, trying to win the game. We saw in Chicago where, they did have some travel issues, but man, they just lost their legs and ran out of gas, and they just really didn't have anything there on the second end of the back-to-back. So that makes me want to play that 2.5. Again, that was minus 140. Let's see here. The goaltender matchup is as followed. I only see Swayman. I believe it was Thompson last night, so I think we see Lindgren tonight would be my guess, but he is
that's who
neither
I see.
of them are listed.
I see Lindgren.
Oh, you do have one?
Yep.
Okay, all right. So
and
you do
Swayman.
have Lindgren
Against Swayman.
and
So it's
Swayman.
what you would think it would see, yeah.
And so all right, we have that matchup tonight, and that's kind of what we thought it would be. But Steve, I'm going to go with the team total, kind of keeping this simple, but I am going to go with our guys here for that team total. What do you think for this one?
It's a cheap number, minus 124 for over 2.5 is what I'd see. So I think that's the right move if you want to play this game. The back-to-back worries me. The streak by Boston worries me. So I'll consider this, but I might eliminate it if I can find better plays as we go. This should be a great hockey game. Boston is probably playing their best they've been playing all season. The Caps are going to come in hungry. Good rival for them. So it'd probably be a good atmosphere at the TDI Garden or the TD Garden or whatever they call that place. I'll list the Capitals 2.5 for now. I may take that off at some point if I find better plays.
Understood. Yeah, that the back-to-back against a team that's surging like Boston is usually a recipe for disaster. Hopefully it won't be that tonight, but it will be a tough game for them. And I don't think, that they're very surprised. They know that. So let's just go in there. Let's get 3 goals and get the Christmas break. So second game up here tonight, we have a interstate matchup with the Tampa Bay Lightning versus the Florida Panthers. Panthers at home tonight, minus 1.5 is a plus 154. Your over-under here is 6.5, plus 136 on the money line for Tampa, minus 162 for the Panthers. 60-minute lines are as such, plus 200 for the Lightning. That's attractive. I wouldn't be afraid to take a little shot there. Florida minus 110 on the money line, so you can see that they are heavily favored in this game. Let's get the goaltending matchups. We have I only have Bobrovsky, Steve. Do you have anybody else?
Let's see here. I see Giannis Johansson for Tampa Bay.
For Tampa.
So no Vasilevsky.
Okay, all right. So that's your goaltender matchup. I went ahead and I took a I believe it was here we go. Over I forgot what the team total was that I took, but I took it for Tampa. Trying to give them a little love here. And it was 2.5 at minus 160. Again, I think the theory is kind of the same here. Steve, what do you think here with these two Florida teams going at it? Two good teams tonight.
Well, you're looking at two teams who score a lot of goals. The Panthers have 126, and Tampa Bay has 122. And we talked about how many goals the Capitals have been scoring. They have 124. Now, so both of those teams right there with them. The Devils have 124 goals scored as well. It's not like Florida's been great with Bob Roski either. They've given up 108 goals. Vasilevsky, not exactly cream of the crop himself here. They've given up 90, which I guess is actually not too bad considering, 90 a week ago was a little bit worse looking. But you have teams like the Penguins who've given up 130. Columbus has given up 123 goals. The Sabres have given up 119. So not as bad by Tampa Bay, but we have the backup goalie in here tonight. I like the over in this game. So I think the over is a fine play. A collaborative effort here by both of these teams. And that's at 6.5 minus 138. You can probably climb the roof through that a little bit, I would think. So I'll go ahead and mark that in my box. Over 6.5 Tampa, Florida goals.
All right, nice. Yeah, I could definitely see that between these two. I have a minus 108 for the over. So, and I think the last time these two teams played, they did that. So I do like that call, Steve. All right, next game up, we have another interstate matchup here. Philadelphia Flyers traveling to Pittsburgh, take on the Penguins. Minus 1.5. Plus 210 for the Penguins. Wow. Your over-under here is 6.5. I could totally understand that as well. And each team, Steve, minus 110 on the money line. So we kind of have a split here. And this is a tougher game to handicap. Your 60-minute lines, plus 155 for the Flyers, plus 120 for the Penguins. So I guess if you're going by way of the 60-minute line, Pittsburgh a little bit more favored than the Flyers. I'm not so sure why. These two teams are, in my mind, pretty much equal, to be honest with you. So this one, maybe you go for an over here. These two teams, we've seen them put some pucks in the net before. I have Tristan Jarry in goal for Pittsburgh, Samuel Ersson for the Flyers. That goaltending matchup does not excite me even a little bit. So I would go for the points here in this one. Steve, what do you make of these two division rivals here?
I like the over. Both of these teams allow a ton of goals. And they can't score themselves, like you said. So I'll expect the same thing tonight in Philadelphia. If you climb over to an alternate number of 7.5, you now get paid plus 220. If you want to take that in the Tampa game, both of those over 7.5, you get paid nearly 8-1 on your money right now. So I'm going to lock those two in, and hopefully we get a couple of fiestas. And I'll look for one or two more to add as we go through the rest of the slate, because we're just getting started. And a lot of games here to start right at 7 o'clock. I'm going to get 5 games at 7, another one at 7:30, and then that gets you really going here until the late night games go off.
Yep, and a couple late nights as well. Next game up, the Columbus Blue Jackets are at home. They're hosting the Canadiens tonight. Kind of a stink fest here. Minus 1.5 for the Jackets is at plus 185. Your over-under is 6.5. Plus 105 for the Canadiens on the money line, minus 125. Your 60-minute lines, plus 170 for the Canadiens, minus 110 for the Jackets. Your goaltending matchup is going to be Sam Montembeault for the Canadiens and Jet Greaves for the Blue Jackets. Steve, I'm going to tell you what. I went ahead and I took a bit of a chance here. But I went into a team total here with Columbus and over 3.5 goals for them at plus 105. We've seen that they can score. The problem is they let them in just as easy. So I like the team total angle here, 3.5 for the Blue Jackets. What are your thoughts here?
I think you can take either team over in this game, and I think you can take the game over as well. Again, you just have a matchup here where we got some backup goaltending involved. You have two teams that are generous in giving up goals, and both are somewhat capable of scoring. Montreal, you got to say they're on a little bit of a heater as well. They're putting goals in there. They won 3 in a row. Columbus, they've been staggering here. Only 2 wins in their last 10, but they have gone to overtime 3 times. Somewhat of a lovable loser still, especially with the issues in the summertime. If you discount regulation, there's still almost a 500 hockey team with those 6 overtime losses. If you count those out, they're 13-15 in regulation. And really, only 3 points out of 4th place in the Metro. They're only 3 points behind Pittsburgh. So it's not like as bad as Columbus has been that they're the worst. I think we get goals here again in this game. I really haven't looked at the slate until we did this show, but just from the outside looking in here, the numbers say it. I'll take the over 6.5.
Yeah, it looks like we're going to hopefully have quite a bit of overs here before the Christmas break. That would be a fun night for sure. So here's a game that I looked at, and I just don't think that I want much, to do with this one, Steve, and we'll see if you agree with me. St. Louis is in Detroit to take on the Red Wings. Red Wings are a plus 220 for minus 1.5. On the puck line, your over-under here is 5.5, minus 108 for the Blues on the money line, minus 112. Your 60-minute line is as such, the Blues plus 160, the Wings plus 120. So a slight favorite here for Detroit at home. Your goalie matchup is going to be Cam Talbot is going to be in for the Wings, and Jordan Binnington in for the Blues. I think I like Bennington a little bit more in this matchup. So, and that kind of goes with what I was going to say is I don't think I have a play on this one, but I do like the Blues here a little bit more in this matchup than I do the Red Wings. Steve, what are your thoughts here on a game that could be kind of weird to handicap?
Detroit's under 500 at home. That's their main issue for them. But how about these numbers, Dave? These are a little staggering here. In their last 10 games, both of these teams 3-5-2. Detroit has given up 107 goals on the season. The St. Louis Blues have given up 107 goals on the season. The Red Wings have scored 88 goals on the season. The Blues have scored 87 goals on this season. So these two teams are mirroring each other exactly. I think you're right. This is a stay away for me.
Yeah, I mean, they're the exact same team. I just don't want anything to do with it. There's just too many tough plays there. You're really not sure what's going to happen in this one. Next game up, I believe, is going to kind of be the same. Even though this team has really been struggling, I don't like the Islanders. They are at home versus the Sabres tonight, minus 1.5 for the Islanders at plus 154. Your over-under here is 5.5, which might actually be takeable as an under here, which is crazy at plus 102. You think that's a lot, but in the grand scheme of things, if you ever play an under 5.5, can really bite you. Plus 130 on the money line for the Sabres, minus 155 for the Islanders. If we get a goaltender matchup, it's going to be, as we load in, Pekka Luukkonen in there for the Sabres. Ilya Sorokin in for the Islanders. I like Sorokin a little bit more in this matchup. And the Sabres sliding, I do like the Islanders in this matchup probably a little bit more. But again, they're not my favorite, and I don't say that with a lot of conviction. Maybe this is a spot here for the Sabres to kind of get things right before the break. And too many variables, just kind of like the game before. And for that reason, I think it's a stay away. Steve, what are your thoughts?
I'll stay away as well. It has 2-1 Islanders written all over it 3-2 Islanders or 3-1.
It does.
Written all over it. Just not a game I could get into tonight when there's so much other stuff happening. Full slate of NBA I could look at. I can find a bad NBA game there before I can find a bad hockey game probably. So we'll pass on this Islander Sabre game. Two teams heading the wrong direction, though, I'll say, overall. So I'll jump just like the Blues
game.
and the Red Wings. Two teams not doing very well. So let's just not get involved here.
Yeah, no, it's a stay away from me. But Steve, I mean, can you imagine it's a 2-1 game, like you said, and cashing in on under 5.5? I mean, doesn't that scare you?
Yep. Yeah, it does.
Probably not a play we'll see us make that many times. All right, next up, the Blackhawks in Minnesota to take on the Wild. Your over-under here is 5.5. I can understand that one. I could see Minnesota completely shutting down Chicago. -1.5 for +120 on the Minnesota puck line. Again, over 5.5. That's your total. +185 for the Blackhawks on the money line. -225 for the Wild. Let's get a goalie matchup here. We have Philip Gustafsson for the Wild. That's the only goalie I have right now. Do you have another one?
Yeah, let's see here. I keep looking at my floor to see if there's a dog running up to me, Dave. That's
yeah,
your house, right? I keep thinking Babs might be running up to me. Where's he at? Getting attacked.
I'm going to have to probably change locations real quick. Stand by.
All right, okay. The Wild, to me, are not a team I can trust at this point. And the Blackhawks, not playing their worst hockey at the moment. They're right close to 500 in their last 10. They're 4-6, which isn't the greatest. But the Wild have lost 4 in a row. They haven't been playing well to me. They don't play well at home either. They have a terrible home record. I mean, not terrible, but they're 500, 8-8 overall at home. I'm just not interested in the Wild in this game. Again, I think this is a lower scoring game here. The Wild have only scored 100 goals. They've allowed 93. The Blackhawks are right there in that same boat. They've, but a little bit more on the flip side. Blackhawks allowing 108. Babs. It sounds like there's a Babs in here. 88 scored by the Blackhawks for them. So just two teams not doing well at the moment. I'll just put them in the same class as those other two games we just talked about. I mean, they're in bad form. Two teams in bad form. I just have no interest in that. And I'd rather go for the two teams that are in decent form or good form like I have kind of slated already with the earlier games. So pass on me with the Wild.
Understood. I took a bit of a shot myself, hoping that they can kind of jump on a struggling Blackhawks team. I did take the -1.5 at +120. All right, so let's get into the next game. Next game will be, I'm all thrown off. We're going to get back to it here.
No problem.
All right, here we go. Carolina Hurricanes taking on the Nashville Predators. -1.5 on the Carolina puck line, +195. Your over-under here is 6. -125 for the money line, +105 for the Nashville Predators. So let's jump into this one. We'll get a goaltenders matchup. I think I took Carolina in this game. I'd have to look into my tickets. I think I just did the straight up money line at -125. I think that's a pretty good play. Carolina on the road against a struggling Nashville Predators team. -1.5 is the puck line for Carolina at +195. Your over-under is 6. Minus 125 for the Hurricanes, plus 105 for the Predators. Goaltender matchup. Dustin Tokarski is the only goalie I see. Do you have a matchup?
Let's see here. I have Tokarski. That's it.
Yep, Tokarski. He is the only goalie, so I guess
I think he's a former admiral. Tokarski.
I think he is, actually. I think you are correct about that. But here it is. This is kind of short and simple here, Steve. Carolina money line.
I'll take Carolina over 2.5 goals here, where they are stubborn. And you know what? Carolina probably is the better play in the money line, maybe. Nashville can be a little stingy behind the net there, but they've given up 105 goals. They can't score. That's their main issue. They only have 79 goals scored. They're the only team in the 70s, and there's not many teams in the 80s. Let's see. There's 3 teams who have scored in the 80s, and they're all in the upper 80s. That's Detroit, St. Louis, who we mentioned before, and the Blackhawks. Actually, Anaheim, too, has only scored 81 goals. So Nashville, offensive output-wise, that's as bad as it gets. They've given up 105. Carolina pretty good at scoring goals, 116 for them. They don't give up much either. I think the money line probably is the good play here with Carolina. It worries me on the road a little bit that maybe Nashville can just come to life at home. We did see them win, I think, at home their last time out here. And Carolina is not a team who can completely bludgeon you in a blowout at times. I think the safe play here is, just in case Nashville has a decent home outing, I think the safe play is to take the over 2.5 goals with Carolina, and that's what I'll do tonight.
I like that, Steve. I completely can see that reasoning for sure. So next game up, this is one that I wanted to get into, and as I looked around and I looked at the trends, I just didn't like it. So the San Jose Sharks are in Vancouver to take on the Canucks. You would think this would be a game for the Canucks to, easily handle the Sharks. I believe, the Sharks are on a losing streak, but Vancouver has lost 3 in a row, I believe. So they are struggling themselves. Minus 1.5 at plus 102 on the Vancouver puck line. Your over-under here is 6. And the money line, the Sharks money line, plus 205. Vancouver, minus 250. Your 60 minutes line is going to be the Sharks, plus 340. And Vancouver to minus 175. I just didn't really like any of those numbers in this one. The goaltender matchup, Askarov is the only goalie that I see listed as of now. So do you have another goalie?
Let's see here. Vancouver, San Jose, correct?
Yes.
That's all I see is Yaroslav Askarov.
Yep.
Goalie for the Sharks. So unlisted for Vancouver. Both of these teams are on a bad spell. They've combined for 7 losses in a row now. Vancouver is a team I've been wanting to stay on top of and see if they can progress to being one of these better teams. And every time they kind of do that, they regress back. And just 6-7-5 at home. So they're playing close games here. San Jose, they've shown the ability to score a little bit more as of late. But they've given up 129 goals. Could this be an over here? I don't know. Vancouver, 104 allowed. They've scored 103. This is perhaps a sneaky over, but just because the way these two teams are trending, I think I'll step back from this as well.
Yeah, I just couldn't get on board with these numbers and the trends. So yeah, it was just probably figure it's better to stay away from this one if you can't really get a good feeling with any of it. Next up, the Dallas Stars taking on Utah. This one is in Utah. -1.5 on the Stars puck line is at +142. Your over-under is going to be 6. -175 on the money line, +145 for Utah. Your 60-minute lines are going to be -110 for Dallas, +205 for Utah. Let's see the goaltender matchup in this one. Vejmelka, who's actually been playing very nice. Karel Vejmelka. He's in goal tonight. And then you have him going against Casey DeSmith. So Vejmelka is going to be the Utah goalie. DeSmith, the Dallas goalie, I do believe. So, Steve, this was another one where looking into it, I just really couldn't find much. I know the Stars are the better team. But again, I just thought that there was some better plays here on the board. For that reason, I'm going to stay away from this one. But what do you think?
I took a shot with Utah when they played Dallas at home 3 Mondays ago on the show. They lost 3-1 that game. But it was a competitive game. Utah is 7-1-2 in their last 10. So they've been on fire. Dallas just 5-5. And if you look at their numbers, they're not too far off with the variance. Dallas, 102 goals scored. Utah, 100 scored. Dallas, they've allowed 83. But again, they're on the second goalie tonight. And Utah, 96. And you like their goalie. So this is going to be a pass for me. Only because here's what will happen. I'll take Dallas, and this is the game Utah won. And I had the opposite last time, so I'm not going to play that game.
All right. And now here's one. We'll finish it off right here. The Anaheim Ducks taking on the Vegas Golden Knights. And I built a ticket earlier, and this is where I took my stab. The Anaheim Ducks, the over-under here is 6.5. The Vegas Golden Knights puck line -1.5 is at -125. So you're getting, not the greatest number there. +250 for the money line for the Ducks, -310 for the Knights. The Ducks 4-1 on the 60-minute line, -230 for the Golden Knights. Your goaltender matchup, it's going to be John Gibson for the Ducks and Aiden Hill for the Knights. Two pretty good goaltenders in themselves. I think the matchup is good with the goaltenders. The team matchup, I can't say the same thing for. So you're going to probably want to favor Vegas here. And, Steve, I went with a game parlay of the Vegas Golden Knights and under 6.5. It was at +150, I believe. When I took it, it's at +145 now. So there's my stab. I'm going to put a little bit of trust into Vegas. I think we can do that here in this spot against Anaheim. What are your thoughts here?
I like the Knights in this game. Do I want to take them over 3.5 goals is the question. Like you said, Gibson can be a little stubborn, but Vegas, they just kind of give you that offense of onslaught at home here. Again, they're 13-3. Anaheim's not a very good team at all. They're amongst the worst in the league. A little tricky on the road with Anaheim. 7-5-3 on the road. You got to give them a little bit of credit for that. And they are just 4-5-1 in their last 10. But again, they can't score. That is their issue. There's 81 goals allowed. You got to think Vancouver wins this game. It's a big price, -320. I get it. The 60-minute three-way is maybe a little bit better at -195. I'm thinking about adding this to my ticket. I just feel like the Knights team goals have been money. Even at over 3.5, it's -168. But even if I just take them on a straight money line, -320, that's going to add to my parlay I have going on pretty good already. But Yeah, it's Vegas or nothing, but I think this is the play I like the best late night.
Yeah, it's a good late night play, Steve. I'd have to agree with you on that. All right, so that's the slate. I think there is some really good stuff to be had here. Definitely some stuff in the early window, and I think there are a couple sneakies in the late window. So, if you're enjoying the holidays and, you don't have much to do in the morning, maybe tune into some of this late night hockey if you can, stay up for a little bit of it. Steve, let's jump into the futures. We're running about right on track here. How's that sound?
Sure, let's do it.
All right. We'll start with the Eastern Conference. We'll do the top 6. And, Steve, I'm loving this right now. The Florida Panthers, plus 370. Carolina Hurricanes, 4-1. The Maple Leafs, 5-1. The Devils, 5-1. And these two teams deserving the respect, I feel like. Tampa moves into the 5th best spot there at 8-1. And then, Steve, there's our boys, the Washington Capitals, finally getting looked at 11-1, being the 6th most favorite in the East. That's a fantastic number, I think. Still getting a good number on them. Maybe some people are still thinking it's a fluke. I don't think it is at this point. This team looks like the real deal, and they're here to contend. So what do you make out of this list here, Steve?
I mean, I've got my futures tied up with the Capitals, so I like it. I mean, it's again, here, let me pull it back up here on my side. With the Rangers would be the one team I'm kind of looking at as they continue to drop 12-1 now for the Rangers. And they're hey, how about the Bruins 18-1? So getting some numbers on those two right now for the Eastern Conference. If you believe the Rangers are going to turn things around, which you got to think that's going to happen.
You'd like to think at some point, but man, Steve, if they think they're going to have a difficult year and they're going to try and retool a little bit, you could see some pieces leave where, they say, all right, this was a failed year. Maybe let's see what we can get and really retool for next year. So I think that's always a possibility as well.
So, and the other thing here is the Penguins. I mean, you have them at 80-1, where you still have the Sabres at 60-1, the Islanders at 32-1. I'd rather have the Penguins at an 80-1 as a long shot.
Much more than I would the Sabres, absolutely, in that regard. So let's jump into the West. We'll do the top 6. Edmonton still favored. Plus 280. Dallas is 5-1. Vegas is 6-1. Colorado plus 650. There's the Jets still in the back at 8-1. And then the top 6 there ends with Minnesota at 10-1. Steve, I like the Knights 6-1 and the Jets 8-1. I think those are the two teams that I gravitate towards. I just don't like the number for Edmonton where they are. You got to figure there's a good reason for it. But I think your better numbers are sitting there with those two teams in the Knights and the Jets.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I like both of those, Dave.
All right. Well, there's our futures. We always talk about the conference, and we'll look at the Cup top 6 plus 650 for Edmonton, Florida 7-1, Hurricanes plus 750, Dallas is 10-1, the Maple Leafs are 11-1, and New Jersey rounding out the top 6 at 11-1. But there's some really good numbers here on the back end. Colorado 13-1, Vegas 12-1. Tampa's getting a nice number at 16-1. The Capitals 25-1. You might have better. But there's some good teams here with some much better shots than some of these teams up at the top. What do you think for the NHL championship?
I'm just going to let those numbers my theory on this is just it's the same as it always is. it's just easier to win the conference than it is the Stanley Cup. So
Right.
I'm going to put the eggs in the basket of the conferences instead of trying to get that extra round. And this is nothing new, but if you're new to the show, then that's a good way to do things. Instead of, for example, looking for the Super Bowl winner, pick the AFC or NFC winner. You don't have to worry about it those extra 2 weeks.
Right.
And you still cash out. I just feel the same way about the Stanley Cup in that sense.
All right,
yes,
Steve.
give me the Capitals at a big price.
I love it. I love it. All right, you want to queue up the penalty box?
Sure, let's do it. Queuing up the referees. And there's plenty of qualifiers for me.
Mike, come on. You can't do that.
Yeah, I have two.
All right, go ahead. You got in the penalty box, Dave.
All right, in the penalty box, I'm going to throw in. God, why does it do that? Let me get back to my list here. I'm going to throw in, Steve. I think you have to throw in the Buffalo Sabres. They haven't shown anything to get off that list. And then another one also would be the Detroit Red Wings.
All right, I'll go ahead and throw in the Rangers in the penalty box. What have they done lately to make you have any faith in them? They're in a bad way heading into the Christmas holiday. Losing 5-0 today. So maybe the fade train is full on out here on the Rangers. And then I'll go ahead and throw in, let's see here. I'll throw in the Canucks here. Losers of 3 in a row. And here's one. I think I've thrown them in before. And this is a team I've been playing against. So I have to throw them in, I guess. But Seattle, the Seattle Kraken has been about as good a team to bet against as any here in the NHL.
Yeah, Steve, I couldn't agree more. All right, you got a goal scorer for us tonight?
Oh, yeah. Let's go ahead and cue up the horn. I think I come up with a goal scorer. And I'll go to my higher scoring games here. Go ahead and give me Alexander Barkov at plus 170. Florida Panthers at home. They'll get a backup goalie in net. And I look for a lot of goals in that game. And since we have a full slate, I'll go ahead and give you a bonus play. And we'll hit this Flyer and the Penguin game. And we'll go ahead and take a player who's been very under the radar good in the National Hockey League. That's for the Flyers. We'll take Travis Konechny at plus 170 as well.
Oh, I love it. I love it. All right, I'll give you mine and a bonus. And then we'll go ahead and wrap things up. Steve, it's great minds think alike here. I'm going to go into the same game, but I'm going to go with Jake Gensel at plus 165. And then we're going to go with one of our guys tonight, Steve, who's been just a great addition. And he should really, really be signed to some term here for the Washington Capitals. And that is going to be defenseman Jacob Chychrun at 5-1. Him and Carlson get heavily involved in the offense. And you got to love the 5-1 price for Jacob Chychrun.
All right. Sounds good, Dave. So that's it. We'll get on out of here and we'll talk more hockey next Monday, and we'll do our NFL show on Saturday and Sunday with the round robin. Sound good?
That sounds good.
All right. Merry Christmas, everybody. Good luck.
All right.
tonight.
Merry Christmas and good luck.